Hi, everyone. I'm Rhonda Ellis.
And I'm Melissa Sutton. And this is Cultivating a Home,
the podcast. This is a place where we will talk about what really matters. Growing in our walk with Christ, building strong marriages, raising our children with intention, and creating peaceful, life-giving homes centered on Him.
We'll share practical encouragement, real-life stories, and biblical truth to help you cultivate a heart and home that reflects Jesus. New episodes are every Thursday, so let's step into today's conversation together. Thanks, everybody, for joining us again this week. We love being able to share with you each week. And today, we're going to continue our conversation from last week, a little bit about having clear boundaries, relationships over rules, restoration and forgiveness. And last week, we ended our episode by talking about talking to our children, talking to them individually, and seeing if they're ready to ask for forgiveness and apologize. What are some more steps that we can talk about in a situation like that?
That's a great question. We know that we want our children to be adults who own their part of the problem. Don't we all know people who never do that?
Yeah, these are good tips for not just raising kids, but for ourselves, right, as adults.
It's always everyone else's fault.
Right.
Even if you get an apology, it might be, okay, I'm sorry, but you don't know how hard it is to blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what we want to teach our children and role model ourselves is these words. And it doesn't have to be these exact words, but I have found these to be extremely helpful in my life and in raising kids, which helps in having a peaceful home when people know how to apologize and how there's continual restoration taking place. So it would be something like this. These words, I know I was wrong for, and you say what it is. The next thing is I was, and you describe how that hurt the person. And then I'm sorry. And then, will you forgive me? So it could be something like, I know I was wrong for throwing the remote control at your head.
Right.
But omit the laughter. But that's specifically identifying what they did wrong. The next part is I was mean and selfish, and I wanted to have control over the TV. And the next part is, I'm sorry, and you feel for the person. I'm sorry for hurting you like that and not being trustworthy. And then the next part is simply, will you forgive me? And so as we have children of any age, really, wherever you are when you're hearing this, whatever ages your kids are right now, it is not too late to begin this.
Yeah.
You can always say, I heard a podcast, I heard somebody share this, and I would like for us to begin to incorporate this in our home.
Yeah.
And you be humble enough to say, and it starts with me, and you could be at the dining room table where you're talking with the whole family. Like, I would like for us to incorporate this in our family.
Yeah.
And you could start with giving them an example of your own thing. It made me think of yesterday. I yelled at you all. And so you could say, so we'll do it like this in our home. I know I was wrong for yelling at you. I totally lost my temper. I was self-centered when I was yelling.
Yeah.
I wanted my way. And instead, I could ask for help. So I'm sorry for treating you all like that.
Yeah.
Will you forgive me?
That's good.
And so you can role model it like that. And you could have, if you have little ones or whatever, you could have them practice that. And let that be the standard by which you acknowledge problems, acknowledge sin and hurtful tendencies and things in your home, and you are continuously restoring the peace and the connections and the hearts within the home. I think this is a really beautiful thing. Now, I have an example of a time in my life where I was face to face with, how am I going to acknowledge my ownership of a problem that was pointed out to me by my child?
So painful.
A teenager.
Yeah.
I had to think through, okay, do I want to laugh do I want to act like it didn't happen? Because we don't want homes where we just sweep things under the rug.
Yeah.
Or we wake up the next day and act like everything's okay.
Right.
No,
both are not,
They're not good. And
Yeah.
I think ultimately we're teaching our kids how to go into their adulthood, into their marriage, into friendships, how to handle conflict. We really need to learn this skill of owning our problem and apologizing for it.
Yeah.
Well, there was a time when, I'm sure there was just this one, that's all.
Sure. Only one.
But I remember very clearly there being a time when our oldest son was a teenager and his dad, so my husband, said something to him. I can't remember what that was, but what I do remember is the reaction of my son was very disrespectful and sarcastic and rude. And it hit me when he did that.
Yeah.
That was a reflection of me.
Oh, gosh.
I knew it. I was like, that's what I sound like.
Yeah.
And so I called him over to me and I said, John, I want to apologize to you because what I just heard from your mouth, I know is what I have sounded like to your father. And I know I was wrong for talking to him with a disrespectful tone. I was rude. I was selfish. And I have taught you that. I didn't mean to teach you that, but I did. And I own it. Will you forgive me? And so we came up with a code. This is very, very cool code here.
It's fancy.
Not really. I just took my pointer finger and like slid it under my nose back and forth like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you're not if you're not looking at us right now, put your pointer finger like you're going to sneeze and land on your pointer finger under your nose. And we said, okay, you can hold me accountable, each one of us.
Yeah.
If we do that, if we see each other being disrespectful, then we can quietly with no words, just do that little symbol, like do the finger. Whoosh, whoosh. And then that is to help us to grow in that area of a tendency that we have.
Yeah.
So we had that conversation and no more than 10 minutes later, I was standing in the kitchen talking with my husband and I said something like in a disrespectful or rude tone. And my son walked behind my husband with the eyes staring at me as he slowly walked behind him and he did the whoosh, whoosh thing. And I really wanted to ignore it because I wanted my voice to be heard. But he was right. And we agreed to help each other with this. And so I stopped what I was doing. And I said to my husband, whose name is also John, I said, John, what I just said to you was in a disrespectful tone. So I know I was wrong for talking with you like that. That is not kind. Will you? I'm sorry. And will you forgive me? And so therefore, modeling that in front of your family is so helpful. And also giving your teenagers or your children the space that you can help each other. It's a safe place to help each other to grow in the area of respect in the home and acknowledging our ownership into the way that our words and our tone are presented amongst each other. So that's kind of a funny example that sometimes my son and I still do, and he's in his 30s, and we still do that just to be funny with each other at times.
Well, and it's such an example of catching maybe what we would consider something small or little and dealing with it, because it can become worse. It can grow. It can just hurt feelings when there doesn't need to be, when you catch those things when they first start.
Right.
Little things.
And we do want to catch ourselves and our children. They become disrespectful at a very young age. We have a little grandchild that stomps her foot. And I think, how? Nobody taught you that.
Yeah.
How did you learn that?
Right.
And so catching them at a very young age of, you stomped your foot, and helping them identify the reason they did it, the motive, the root of it is they wanted their way. And you're helping a child to think on their own, to learn this and to have a different way How could you have, like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
And because I wanted the cookie. Okay. How could you handle that differently? I could ask for a cookie. Yes. So ask, and then you teach them ahead, and you need to ask nicely with respect, but you also need to accept if the answer is no, and you teach them that. You can talk about a house changing little by little from chaotic or disrespectful or a tone you don't want in your home to being a respectful, calm, peaceful home. It's teaching the family members how to communicate kindly and respectfully, and to really catch any forms of passive aggressive or aggressive, any kind of disrespectful types of communication.
Well, and that too, the story between you and John, your son, is an example of what we were talking about last episode about relationships over rules. And so you could have totally put all of that on John, your son, about the way that he was responding to your husband. But instead you said, hey, I hear myself in what you're saying right now, and I want to take ownership of it. And that's a way of relationship over rules, because the relationship that you have with your son is more important. And getting on his level and saying, I do that too, that is an example of a way that you did relationship over rules. And we were talking earlier today about that quote of relationship. If you're only talking about rules,
rules without relationship equal rebellion.
Exactly. And that we know those stories of how there's rebellion because there's just rules, no relationship.
Right.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. There's so many different aspects to applying that quote.
Yeah.
And it's one that I've thought of so many times throughout my parenting. So it could be like a mom constantly saying, clean your room, stop that, go to bed, which aren't bad things by themselves, but she rarely spends time talking, listening, or showing warmth, just being present with her child. It's all about performance. And the child probably feels like it's never good enough. But the child may obey for a while, but eventually resist or ignores or even become sneaky. So we really need that child to feel valued, heard, not just controlled.
Yeah.
Right? Or what about a teenager with strict rules but no trust? A parent might enforce no phone after 9, no hanging out without approval, or strict curfews. So those things, there's not necessarily bad by themselves. They're very helpful things, right? But if there's not open conversation, there's not listening, there's not understanding the teenager's world or hearing what event the child might want to go to.
Yeah.
Like letting them be heard and being willing to adjust what the rule that's in place in the family is, because the child has earned a level of trust. So rules feel like control instead of what the parent is intending it for, which is protection.
Yeah.
And then also it could apply to our marriage. If one spouse says, we need to save money, you shouldn't spend like that, and it's just constantly like that instead of no emotional connection or no shared vision or no kindness in the way that the communication takes place, the result could be the other spouse becomes defensive or dismissive or even quietly rebellious. And have we ever seen things like, I know you and I have never done this, of course, but like, have you ever had a friend say, I went shopping and I left all the packages in the car until my husband went to work?
This is shocking.
It's shocking. It's shopping. And so, that could very well play into it.
Yeah.
Is because there's not open communication about buying things and what somebody would make someone feel good versus what the budget really is. And, having an open discussion on this is how much money we have and you can use it however you would like. This is your amount to spend freely on yourself. And I get this amount too, and that there's trust and freedom. It feels good to have that kind of discussion with your spouse rather than feeling like authoritative relationship. Well, and we've all seen it like in teachers or leaders where the leader says, do it this way, follow this system. This is the only way to do it. Don't question it. but doesn't build rapport or explain the why.
Right. Has no relationship. If a leader has no relationship with, the people that are under them.
Yeah.
And it's just about rules, it's not going to work.
Exactly. And I said that's a teacher or a leader, but think about it. As parents, we are the teachers, the leaders within the home. And we want to build rapport. We want to explain the why. It doesn't mean we always have to, because children need to just trust and do what they're told. But as they get older, understanding the why helps them make an executive decision that is wise, because they have the tools to think. And so people don't give their hearts to someone who hasn't invested in them.
Yeah, that's good.
And we had some kind of really difficult years with a few kids where they pushed me away and I couldn't figure out why. And my prayer was, Lord, let me continue to have their heart. And I think it was to ask the child, there's still not necessarily a reason that they even knew why they were doing it. But it was so important just to maintain a relationship, even though you feel kind of a pushback going. And God is the one that can give us wisdom in that and insight. Like, Lord, give me creative ideas to just have the heart of this child through this season.
That's really good. Talk a little bit about obedience the first time, obeying the first time.
So that's important for sure. I had Rondi Day yesterday, which is where I have my little grandkids there's actually 6 that are 3 years old and under. So I have 5 of them because the 1-month-old is home with her mom, giving her a break. Letting her just hold and love on her little one. And so that's a lot of little ones, right?
And she's not even in the bed today, you guys. She's podcasting after having 5 kids under 3 years old yesterday.
I did text the parents. I said, be here at 4, not 5. Be here at 4 today.
And were you in the bed at 4:30?
Yes. But what I noticed in the kids yesterday was, as they're getting a little bit older, you're starting to see some real sin natures coming out. And it's fine, because we all have them. We're all wired with strengths and weaknesses and fears and things that we love. We're a unique, individual. But we're starting to see some of that come out. And so yesterday was like, it is Ellis boot camp time around here, which is a phrase that I made to be funny, but it actually helps me. It just means, okay, it's time to change something or to incorporate something that will help bring the tone to where we want it to go. So I'm joking about Ellis Boot Camp because they're little ones, but I did say that because I was aware for the first time in their little lives that it's time to make sure that a couple things take place. And that is, first, when they're called, that they respond and they come to you. So role playing like that. And I say that because the second I turn around, one would have their hand in the toilet.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Now, she's actually too little to practice this. But as the kids get a little older, which is certainly 2 years old and even younger than that for some, you practice with them sitting on the couch and you just say their name. Like I would say, Melissa. Well, you first tell them what you're going to do. Like, when I call your name, I want you to say, yes, ma'am, or yes, Rondi, or whatever it is you want your children to say. It might be yes. Or may I help you? No, not really. But then you practice that. You sit them on the couch and you say, Melissa, and you say, yes. There you go. And then you would stand them up and do the same thing. And then you practice it again where you're further apart from them. And then further apart, again, you practice that. And then you practice where you're around the corner and they don't see you. And you say, yes, ma'am, or yes, and they come to you. And you just practice that. That's role playing. And that way, first of all, they are learning to respond to them being called. Super important and really helps. If you think about moments in your family with little ones where it's chaotic, it's because they're not listening, right? So that's important. So that's one. And then another one is when you give a command to them, and that sounds like a strong word, but what I mean is eat your potato.
Right.
It's a command, right? So that's a strong word. But what I mean is if you ever give any direction at all, they need to reply. They need to respond with, yes, ma'am, or yes, Rondi. And it's so funny because our little grandkids do that now.
Yeah.
And also we have a 12-passenger van called the Rondi bus. We have 6 baby car seats in it. It's so funny. And so they sit in there, and you can imagine, like I forgot this till we got the Rondi bus. When you have a lot of little ones, you really need structure. They need a routine. So they now know when I take them each one out of the car seat, they sit along the edge of that big door that opens up.
Yeah.
And they wait. Even
cute.
The 1-year-old.
So cute.
That like just turned 1.
Yeah, I love it.
Sits because if we don't have some kind of structure, they're going to run in the road or run in the parking lot, whatever. So it's so funny to see 5 of them lined up there in a row because they've been taught a system that helps you have order.
Yeah.
And they can do it. If you have to regroup, you just sit them down and like, we're going to role play today because it's time to get things under control, which as I've mentioned many times and will continue to, it usually starts with us. It starts with our expectations changing and the way that we respond to them not listening and not obeying. Okay, another thing is that we need to expect obedience. So obedience is listening attentively, right? We know that, but obedience is doing things right away, all the way, and with a cheerful heart. Now, that's not easy, but that takes practice in teaching your kids that they're not necessarily going to be joyful when they obey, but they need to not show signs of kicking, pouting, stomping, closing their door, yelling, etc., etc. So obeying right away, all the way with a cheerful heart, which means this 5, 4, 3 is not, you're teaching them, hey, you don't have to obey me right away. Yeah, delayed obedience is disobedience, right? So you want to role play that with your kids. When I tell you to come, then you need to come. By the way, if the kids are playing and you say, come to dinner right now, it would be a little more respectful to say, okay, in 5 minutes, we're going to have dinner.
Yeah, for sure.
So clean up everything right now and then play with one more toy so you'll be ready to put it away when it's time for bedtime or dinner or whatever it is. Yeah. So that's a way to kind of prepare them for that. And then also, I've noticed that one way that we talk with our kids that does not help with them obeying is we say, hey, put that away, okay? You've given them a choice. I mean, we got to feel it from the depth of our heart that we are the leader. We need to be in control, not in a, I'm not saying in a military type form, but we need to really expect them to do that. And there's a verse in the Bible about that. If we leave our kids to their own
devices,
it's a chaotic home. Do you remember what that is?
Proverbs 29:15.
Yes. Like it's something like if it's this is my words for it, but unchecked behavior brings disobedience and grief. Disorder and grief in the home.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, and just like you were saying before about relationships over rules, and just like you were just saying, expect obedience, give clear instruction, and then expect obedience. But also, just like you were saying, if your kids are playing, not expecting something that you don't even expect of yourself, and to have that relationship of in 5 minutes, we're going to be, whatever it is, we're going to be eating dinner. So you have 5 more minutes to do that. Or we're going to be eating at 6. And so at 5:45, you need to be done with that game or done with that video game, or you need to be done reading your book because that's when we're eating. That's giving the expectation. It's still expecting that at 5:45, 6 o'clock, that's going to be ending and you're going to be doing what our family is doing then. That's expecting obedience. It's giving clear instruction and expecting obedience the first time. That's having the relationship over the rules. And that's an example to us of our relationship with the Lord. He's given us clear instruction, and then he wants us to be obedient. And so when he calls or when he tells us what we need to be doing, obedience the first time. But he's given us that relationship over the rule because he gives us the clear instruction first.
That's very, very true. And lots of grace, right?
Lots of grace. Thank you, Lord.
Another thing that happened with the grandkids, one of them, the parent said, hey, we're working on him not throwing things and pushing people. So, okay, I want to join them in that, because the more often that you see it, the more often, again, it's exhausting, but we get to work with it to help with the root of this, right? And so yesterday, he threw things and I could let it go. But because we have said this is important in this child, then we would stop and have him look at our eyes, and we would talk about the throwing things. But every time it happened, I would get on his level, look at his eyes, have him look at my eyes, and then the command for him, remember how we talked about and give one command? The command was, and again, that's a strong word, but the thing we would tell him to do to check his heart, and also in the whole process of continuing to help him learn not to do this, was we'd say, okay, now go pick up the toy you threw, and then apologize to the person he hit or tackled or threw or whatever. And it was just sweet all day long, from dynamics from all different ones of them. There were these things going on over and over, not just that one, but all of them had things that they're apologizing. And it's exhausting being a mom, but what a beautiful opportunity we have when they sin to help them, to guide them on not doing that. And also to have like peace in the home, the restoration continues, and the friendships and the trust built right in the home. So I would say to the moms listening, observe your child, study your child. How do they act within your home? What do you see when they don't like something you're doing? Do they slam a door? I mean, like, let's get serious and address these things. Because we want to move children into adulthood that are the healthiest version of their personality, with the healthiest mental state, where there's not, like I said, sweeping things under the rug. They're not stuffing things down. They're not aggressive and mean, but they've been taught how to recognize the patterns that they have and to give them to the Lord. So study your kids and then begin to, make it a priority to stop the world, to stop what you're doing, to address these things when you see them. And then finally, it's super important that there are times when we have to be really strong, such as your child starts to run in the road or starts to touch a hot burner or something. And we don't need to be like, oh, please don't do that. We need to be so serious about it, right? And there's sin that takes place in the home too, where it's time to have that sort of intentionality. Like, we are going to deal with this because it's for their good. It's for the good of the siblings and the relationships within your home and the overall tone in cultivating a peaceful home.
That's awesome. Guys, we hope that you have been able to gain some little nuggets today of things that you can implement in your own heart and life today, and examples that we have shared, and maybe something that you need to work on in your own heart and life. And we hope that you join us again next week in Cultivating a Home.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for spending this time with us today. We hope you're walking away encouraged and equipped with something simple you can put into practice right where you are. Remember, it's the small, faithful choices that shape the atmosphere of your home. So wherever you are today, keep cultivating hearts and homes for Christ.